Hello my people and welcome back to Freedom Forest. It's a very exciting day today because it is the day of the corn, and more specifically planting corn direct. And now it's the second week of May and I've been waiting for soil temperatures to reach around about 10 degrees, and 10 degrees is when corn will germinate, and ideally between 10 and 12, preferably like 12 or 13 is brilliant. And when you get to those kind of ranges, it's said that corn should germinate within about 10 days. Whereas if you sow it much earlier than that, it's going to sit in the ground, cold and potentially rot. So we have 3 varieties this year we're trying. If you're not accustomed to the trials I'm doing this year, be sure to go back and check out the last video I made a couple of weeks ago on growing maize to be self-sufficient. Today I'm going to be starting off in our first area with the glass gem corn, which is that beautiful rainbow coloured cob which can be used not only as popcorn but also for grinding to make flour. And once we've got these planted, we'll then move on to our blue Hopi and our sweet corn direct as well. Alright, so I know this is kind of cheating a bit really, but I intend to be doing this hopefully for the rest of my life. So I'm using this infrared thermometer this year, which I bought because at some point I want to make a little still, because I used to love watching moonshiners on TV, make some whiskey and that. But what this is going to do for me is let me know my soil temperature. And I don't want to take the soil temperature on the surface, because if we have a little look at that, that's saying 23 degrees, which is obviously really hot. It's a sunny day today, but we want to take our soil temperature down roughly about an inch or so, where our seed is going to actually be in the ground. Okay, hopefully you can see I'm getting that in the hole there, and our reading is 16 degrees there, which is absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to do a few more test holes just to make sure that is accurate. I might even go a tiny bit deeper on that one. 16 again. Okay, that's great. And I'm going to do one more in a different location. Okay, and that one is saying 17 degrees. So actually, in actual fact, we would have probably been okay a bit earlier than this to sow these direct, which is really interesting. Yes, so we may have actually got away with sowing these a week or 2 earlier than I am now. Obviously this is going to vary depending on the season, but not only that, you want to look ahead at your forecast as well to make sure that there isn't going to be a major drop in temperatures below freezing as well. Because although we're going on the soil temperature, which is the most important determinant for these germinating, it's going to stay much more kind of a stable temperature down there than the ambient air temperature outside. Okay, so we're ready to go. You can see I've got 3 horizontal rows here, as opposed to 1 long strip, for example, which wouldn't be so ideal because corn is wind pollinated, so you kind of want it more in a block. So as pollen is dropping, it's got more chance of landing on a tassel below. I'm going to do a spacing of probably about a foot between each kernel of corn, and I'm going to put 2 in each hole, and I'm going to try and count, if I can, how many I've put in each row, because part of the learning process is really getting a gauge on how many losses or just plants that aren't going to reach maturity from direct sown corn. And yeah, we'll work it out. We'll soon find out in a few weeks' time what has germinated and what's going to make it through. And by that time, the rest of our same variety that we've started off in modules should be ready to plant out as well. So any that haven't been successful, we can fill in the gaps and then extend the planting out in either direction as well. We've actually had really good germination from these glass gems already in the greenhouse at home. We started off roughly 2 root trainer trays of 52 each, so should have about 104 already started, and they're up now and looking good. So I'm expecting that the seeds should have a good germination rate in the ground as well. I've actually got a number of really interesting Native American books on their gardening and agricultural practices, written over 100 years ago, one of them. So it's really good at capturing how the old ways used to be, exactly. And one I think even from the 17th century, or 1700, sorry. And obviously they didn't have the ability to start them off in a greenhouse first, so they would know by the times and the seasons and when other plants were coming into leaf when was right to do this, and also any losses they would get from their first sowing like this, they would then sow again, and there was a risk of them losing that second crop if they did have early frost at the end of the season. So something I probably will do as well, just out of interest for the learning process, is to maybe wait a couple of weeks when it would probably be seen traditionally quite too late to sow direct, and just see what the results are really, because ultimately trying to avoid starting anything in trays or pots when it comes to corn in the future, or the whole Three Sisters itself actually, the beans and the squash. So if we can do it all direct, that makes life a lot easier. Right, I've still got plenty of seed left, so I think I'm actually gonna do one more row in here, and then anything left over I can start off to add to our plants we've already got in modules to fill in any gaps. Alright guys, so the 4 rows are planted now, and I've ended up with 30 seeds in row 1, 28 in row 2, 28 in row 3 and 25 in row 4. So we'll come back and visit these in several weeks' time, and we'll see how our germination was and what the vigour of the plants are like. Now, just to finish the process off here, I've just got some multi-purpose compost here, and I'm just going to sprinkle this along. I haven't filled in my little finger holes yet, and this is just to give a little bit of boost of fresh fertility for our new seedling plants as they're emerging, and give them the best chance we can. Now the soil is quite damp, but I will give this a little water with a watering can in a minute as well, again just to give them the best start we possibly can. So last job now then, I'm going to mark the end of each row with a little bamboo cane and then pull our wood chips back over, and then we can move on to the next variety and repeat the process again. I I'd like to thank you for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for part 2, where I'll be planting out our module sown corn and seeing how the direct sown corn germinates, and comparing both of their establishment over the coming month. Peace and plants.